There you see her, not as awesome as Linda because she remembers these things. Welcome everyone to the club officer training for the treasurer. And I'm happy that we have at least a couple of people here despite the confusion with the date. And I'm sure we'll make it worth your while for the next hour. And with that short introduction and the happy moment that despite announced snow, PSE has not cut my power yet. Let me introduce Paulette Decker, who is our trainer for today. And as a business owner, I'm sure she has a lot of knowledge in depth about how to properly run the treasurer. Even so, I hope most of us don't have to go into that depth that she probably knows. But we'll see. Paulette.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. My plan basically is to go through a series of slides, maybe about 8 slides. So it's not a ton of information. I know that this is not the standard Toastmasters treasurer's deck, but it was altered because quite honestly, that deck is confusing and it talks about things that we may or may not even really need to know, honestly. So the deck has been altered and I'll be sharing that as soon as we, do you think we're ready to go ahead and just jump right into that, guys? Or do you want to wait a couple more minutes? We can ask like what people want to get out of today's session. Maybe if they have some questions up front, and then we'll see if they can be answered either during the presentation or afterward in that Q&A time. All right, 2 thumbs up from Linda. All right, so let's wait a couple minutes just as we do have some people kind of logging in at the last minute, and that's totally cool. Don't want to call anybody out on that. I know people are coming from work and they have other commitments and so forth, but let's give them a couple minutes. Maybe if you could just type in the chat box what it is that you hope to gain by today's treasurer training. That would be super helpful. And then I will let you know if I'm going to be covering that or not in the presentation, or if we can set aside some time, like I said, towards the end of the presentation to answer some questions.
Can I ask a question before we start? It's quicker to ask questions instead of writing in the chat box.
Right, but I would like to see it in the chat box just to make sure that I don't forget it as we go through the presentation and so forth. And then we also have it where other people can see it because maybe they have the same question. And we don't have multiple people. So if you have a question, that would be awesome. David says he's not quite as experienced as the rest, would like to know what others find relevant and interesting. That's a good one. Yes, I knew different payment methods for members in corporate clubs and so forth would be something to cover. I will do my best on that, but since I've never been part of a corporate club, I may or may not have all the answers for you on that, Andy. And then to cover key roles of treasurer, of course, we'll be walking through those momentarily. The good news is that the treasurer role is one of the easiest roles as a club officer. And, you know, other than the big pain in the butt of going and getting your name on the account, which we all know can be a huge time waster, depending on which bank you're going to. That can, you know, mostly that is the biggest issue I find in transferring credit cards and getting, let's see, what is it? We have to do meeting notes and that say that certain people have been voted in for a position and so forth and so on. That's the most challenging part, to take that to the bank and then get everybody in the right place. All right, how to create, and I've never heard of that, Concur account. What does that mean? Jin.
Concur is the accounting software TI uses.
So the Concur is an accounting software?
Yes, for reimbursement for club incentives, for example.
Okay, so I've never heard of that. I'm going to wait till the end, and maybe somebody else in the group has heard of that and they can answer your question on that. All right. Okay, well, we're at 5 after the hour. We do want to respect your time, of course. Every time you guys come to one of these trainings, not only do we hope you get a great benefit from it and learn something new. I think there's always at least one golden nugget from a COT training, or what they used to call melees. And of course, we hope to give you more than one nugget, but hopefully we'll at least give you that. So my name is Paulette Deckers. I am a business person. Truth be told, I've run 3 businesses. I started as a caterer back in the 80s. I ran a bridal trade show for the public for about 13 years. And I am now a licensed hypnotherapist. So boy, talk about a wide variety of businesses and different ways to approach money management. I don't say I'm an expert at it, but I mean, I certainly have some background in running a business and so forth. Now, that being said, running a club is not running a business, but there are some practices that are similar, I would say. First of all, keeping things in alignment, knowing where to put all your documentation, your bank statements, and your tax documents, and so forth and so on. So we will, of course, be covering that today. And then the other thing that you may or may not know about me is that I am a DTM. I acquired my DTM after 4.5 years as a Everett pace setter, kind of hustled there towards the end as legacy was finding its way out the back door and pathways was making its way coming through the front door. So I hope that you will find the information I have for you today useful. And again, if there's any questions that might pop up for you during the training, feel free to just stick it in the side box. And then what we'll do is I have about 20 minutes or so at the end I have reserved to go ahead and go back over any questions that may have been missed or just weren't answered in the first place. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And here we go. Let's see if I can make this work. Sometimes it's challenging in Zoom. Let's see if this will work. Oh, yay, it's going to cooperate today. That's so nice. I love it when technology cooperates, don't we all? All right, so obviously you're all here for treasurer training. You know that your club will get credit for this, you as an officer, and hopefully most of your officers have already gotten their training and you guys are well on your way to your Super 7. So I do have a couple of years as I've been in many different officer roles actually in the Everett Pace Setters. As I said, I've been an Everett Pace Setter for, let's see, going on 6 years this year, 6 years this February. And I've been club president, I've been club VPPR, and now I have been treasurer for the last couple of years because I wanted an easy job and a job that didn't require a ton of my time. So that is my experience. Oh my gosh, hold on just a second. I'm seeing, okay, there we go. So this is not entirely my slide deck. I borrowed this from somebody else who gave a presentation a couple months ago, and I'm seeing that it's just slightly different than what I was seeing at home. So as a treasurer, you are your club's accountant, first and foremost. What does an accountant do? Well, they bring in money, right? They collect dues and then they do disbursements. Whoops, I think something happened there. Holy cow. Well, I don't know about this slide deck, so we're just gonna keep going and see what we can come up with. So as an accountant, what that basically means is it's your responsibility to collect dues from your club members twice a year. And there's of course a number of ways to do that. But just speaking off the top of my head, I mean, back in the day, the clubs used to either take checks, cash, or before, all the new apps, the payment apps and things like that. It was pretty simple. You could basically write a check at your club meeting and hand the check to the treasurer. And then, the treasurer would get to the bank and get that all taken care of for you. But now we have so many different options. It is important for you to keep track of your bank statements, of course. And every club has a little bit different way that they approach what I would consider their officer, like their officer meetings. The Everett Pace Setters, we meet once a month and it's usually right before our general meeting. Other clubs prefer to do it on a separate day from their actual club meeting day. And then some just, they only do it like every other month. But as the treasurer, your primary responsibility, other than, of course, being the accountant and collecting money, is to control the bank account, right? because you're the one with your name on it, and it's up to you to access your bank account however you're doing that, whether you get paper statements or you have a dashboard, which is very common nowadays for most banks. You can go in online and you can check your status of payments and deposits and so forth. It is your job to control your bank account and to check in on that consistently, make sure that money isn't being taken out where it shouldn't be. And of course, having money be accounted for as it's going into the bank account as well. So we are responsible for managing dues and payments. Well, most clubs also charge dues, because whether you pay for a place to have your meetings or not, and I believe most people don't. However, with COVID, all of us are online, are we not? We're sitting online on Zoom, which means we're paying for our meeting space if you've bought a yearly Zoom membership, which is pretty much a requirement if you have more than 3 members in your club, because I think they only allow 40 minutes for 2 members to be, or so two or more members to be online in a Zoom meeting without paying for a premium account, which says that that wouldn't work very well for most clubs, because they have obviously more than 3 members. And they also have longer than a 40-minute meeting, unless you're in a corporate club. And even then, there's still at least an hour. All right. You are also, as I stated earlier, you're a member of the club's leadership board, or as most clubs call it, you're just part of the officers list, right? You're part of the officers board, and you have meetings that come up either once a month or by or every other month, something of that nature. It depends on your club and how you like to manage things. During those leadership board or officer board meetings, of course, it's your responsibility to let all the other officers know how much money you have in your bank account. Pretty simple stuff, right? You just go in, you check your dashboard, or if you have a paper statement, if you're still getting paper statements, you can say, you know, this month we have $400 and some odd cents in our bank account, and we got 11 cents, you know, in interest or something of that nature. Boy, the banks really don't give out much money in the interest department, do they? So as we control the bank account, the primary thing that we have to do, which I mentioned just very briefly in the beginning of the presentation, is we have to establish or transition into the account. You have to become a signatory. Otherwise, you don't have access to the account. You can't write checks, you can't reimburse people, and you certainly may or may not be able to have a credit card that helps pay for your members' dues. Now, I just briefly passed over it, and it's just coming back to me now that most clubs have dues, like we were talking about, because they have to pay for something. Sometimes those dues might be $5 a month, but pretty much if you're renewing every 6 months for Toastmasters International, your dues are $45. And then whatever you tack on there for club account, that's individual to the club itself. Some clubs do $5, some do 10, some do 15. Some do more than that. If they are doing a lot of advertising on Facebook or something of that nature, they may want to have quite a bit of money in their accounts so that they can pull from that money for advertising to gain membership. Okay, so going back to this though, we do need to become a signatory. And the primary way that we can do that is, like we talked about, we have a meeting with the officers. We show in our meeting notes that someone has actually been voted into a specific position. It's a quorum, which is, or a quorum, excuse me. I don't know where I got query from. It's a quorum of voters in the officer board. And then that paperwork, your actual meeting notes, get taken to the bank, and the old treasurer or the club president goes to the bank with the new treasurer, and you of course get your name on there and everything, so that bank statements and or bank information can be processed through you. So now we're at the part where this gets a little bit more complicated, right? Getting to the bank and getting set up on an account there is hard enough, but now if you're going to require checks for your bank account, if you are going to open up any other kind of payment app, like a Venmo app, a Square payment app, and that is a little bit different, because that might actually, and I don't have it here in front of me, but that might actually require a Square, which plugs into the bottom of your phone or something like that. Of course, there's PayPal, which I find to be pretty useful and easy. The biggest issue with that is, of course, the I think it's 3% charge or something like that, which is not uncommon for credit card processing companies to charge. And then there's Zelle, which is something that's actually through your bank. And that in and of itself can be a huge challenge as well, depending on who's on your bank account and who has access to that. Of course, as the treasurer, you get a debit card and you get checks as soon as you become treasurer, because you need to be able to reimburse people or buy things. Now, because we're not meeting in person, I'm not sure how many clubs are actually using their debit cards for things like supplies, ribbons, those sorts of things that can be ordered through Toastmasters International online. But I mean, it's always nice to have a debit card, whether you want to do some sort of advertising and you need a credit card for that, or because typically you're not going to mail a check to, you know, Facebook or Amazon or whatever, different places that you might be choosing to advertise. And then, of course, the primary thing is to maintain accurate records. So I don't know how many people here actually go through and take their bank statements and they do a reconciliation every month. It is probably a wise thing to do, but it could also depend on just how many transactions are going through your bank account every month. If there's not very many, maybe you just reconcile every 6 months when you do members' dues. And in the interim, like I said, you might have some charges for PayPal fees, or you might have some interest from the bank itself. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of in a weird period where we're not doing a lot of the things that we used to do. We're not necessarily paying for meeting space. We're not necessarily ordering ribbons and pins and medals and all kinds of things that we used to order and keep in our lecterns in our meeting spaces. So it just really depends on the club, how much you might actually be using those things and how much you might need to write a check. I think the last time I wrote a check was about 2 years ago. So, you know, checks may be a thing of the past. We'll have to see how that pans out, right? All right, okay. So everybody here knows that we collect dues twice a year. And we're so lucky because we do have up in the trio and up in the higher district management of District 2, we have a dues chairman, and I can't remember the name specifically of who's doing that right now. It might be Donna Stoles, actually, who is sending out those emails and reminding all of the club treasurers and, of course, all of the district management, the division directors and the area directors and so forth, that, hey, it's time to start, you know, reminding your members that it's time for dues. The nice thing is that we've got about 30 days, maybe sometimes even 6 weeks when we do that campaign to start pushing people to, you know, hey, it's due by April 1st. And please make sure you get your check or your payment to me on that date, April 1st or October 1st. That's our next one coming up is April 1st. So we're not too far out from that, are we? As I mentioned earlier, the Toastmaster International fees are always going to be $45, at least until they choose to change that. So far, I haven't seen any ideology about changing that, but one never knows. As you know, base camp and running pathways might become more complicated. Toastmasters may decide to up their fees. We'll see. And then club expenses, that's also very independent of each club. Like I said, some clubs pay for space. It might be minimal, it might not be much at all, but that's where, you know, when you charge a club fee, that can help pay for that. Again, don't know how many people are ordering ribbons and so forth, but those would be considered your typical expenses for clubs. All right. Primary thing you should be doing, and ignore the 4. I have no idea why that's on the side of the slide. Sometimes when a slide goes from a PPTX to a Mac version, it keeps things it shouldn't. So I apologize for the 4. It's not necessary. It's not important. But the primary thing to do is attend your monthly or every other month meeting to keep your officers, of course, you know, understanding where the budget is at that point in time. You will, of course, be asked to present financial status. And while it may not be a huge report, you might just say, hey, we went up $10 this month, or, you know, whatever we had to pay out for our Zoom fees or whatever that might be that's coming up for you at that moment. It's generally not a big detailed report, but there are some people who like to geek out and they like to do, you know, a payment like spreadsheets and things like that. And you're more than welcome to do that if that really makes, float your boat. So there's no right or wrong on that. Of course, you're going to collaborate with your officer leadership team, and special focus is always, of course, because each of the officer roles, I think, is always tied to another role. For instance, I feel VPPR is very tied to membership, but so isn't treasurer, so helping focus with membership to build your membership so that you have more money coming in so that you can stay on top of keeping your club alive. That's important. And that's where you may want to connect with your VPM to talk about ways to support them. All right, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Now, what I'd like to do is go back. Hold on, let me see if I can get to stop share. Seems like there we go. And actually, that didn't take as long as I thought. So that's excellent. Let's just go back to the question, the Q&A. And David, you said you wanted to know what others would find relevant or interesting. I mean, let's be honest, treasurer is just kind of a boring numbers job. But, if you like numbers and you certainly have an affinity for it, that's a great thing. That's a great benefit for your club. But does anybody here want to say what they enjoy the most about being treasurer, what they find the most fascinating or interesting or relevant? And you can also, I don't know if you see, there's like reactions down there. You could raise your hand or you could just unmute yourself. I don't think we're going to have too many people talking over each other.
I'd like to say something.
Sure, David, go ahead.
So it seems that one of the realities that a lot of people accept when they join this organization is that it is difficult, at least in our society, I can't speak for the whole world, to put oneself forth to permeate certain social boundaries. Habitually in the schools, we're taught to listen to our teachers, and there's a little bit of back and forth, but the treasurer has something that is just as difficult to do as to speak in front of people. And one of the hot button issues of our culture, as I understand it, is to ask strangers for things, especially money. And I noticed there is a little bit of shyness among some people as well to deal with that. Is there any sort of...
So are you saying that you have a hard time asking for money when it comes to asking for club?
Actually, I mean, me, I used to be this quiet, introverted guy who didn't mess with people or anything like that. And then I got into sales for a while. Now I'm completely shameless, and people walk in and I have no qualms about asking them for money or trying to rent them an apartment or whatever. And it's in Seattle, that's not traditionally done, especially with
well, I mean, if the VP membership has done his job correctly, right? Because when we're bringing in a new person to the club, and they have gone through what is required for membership, right? And if they've done a really good job and sold Toastmasters as a leadership program for minimal dollars, right? You shouldn't have any problem whatsoever getting people to pay their membership dues. I mean, Toastmaster, $45 for 6 months. I don't know of anything that cheap. And if your club only charges $5 or $10 a month, that's what, $55 for 6 months of online and in person. If you're doing that leadership and speaking skill set, I mean, that's unheard of. Oh. Like dollars wise. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, David, but I mean,
I know it's an easy sell. I mean, especially if we've done any sort of sales, we're speaking to a motivated group.
Sure.
We have a superb product, but I'm talking about, does anybody experienced anybody here experienced an internal hesitation to cross that barrier to from being speaker to requester or asker, or may I have your money, or
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay, so it is hard. Oh, it's like, oh, it's that time of year again. I got to send out that email. I got to start harassing people for club dues, right? Or Toastmasters International dues. Who here has a really great way to answer that question or to approach that potential fear? Anybody?
If you want a technical solution, PayPal business accounts allow you to auto-subscribe people. They enter their credit card information once, and until they cancel, you're going to bill them every 6 months, which saves a lot of emails.
Yeah,
And
that's for sure. And I didn't know that. So thank you, Kevin. I didn't know that you could auto enroll. We use PayPal in Everett Pace Setters. That's one of the only, we don't do Venmo or Zelle or any of those things for a wide variety of reasons. And I'm happy to talk about those. But we use PayPal, and I did not know that you could actually auto enroll. So that's a really great thing to know about. Thank you, Kevin, for sharing that. Anybody else? Kathleen.
Hello, everybody. I started a business last year, and it's just been the hardest thing about it is handing someone an invoice for the work that I've done.
Yeah.
But what I've discovered is that nobody has handed me the invoice back and said, I can't pay you. In other words, everybody is just like, sure, yeah. And, it's like they're ready and willing to pay. And so that's one thing I have to get over, is that if you provide a service for someone and they're enjoying it and they're using it, then there's no issue with payment, or rarely is there an issue with payment. So that's just my take on the situation.
Well, Kathleen, you do bring up a very good point, because as a business owner, you're right, you have to understand your worth. And that is a challenge. I mean, absolutely a challenge for someone to become a business owner and then start asking people to pay them what they feel that their time and their services are worth. But that's a little off track, but I do thank you for sharing that. I mean, I certainly understand where those two tie in together. All right, let's go back through the questions. Different payment methods for members in corporate club and benefits of a BECU account. Okay, so I can talk briefly about the BECU account, but is somebody else, Tina, do you have information on, or does Linda, somebody earlier said they have information on corporate stuff?
I don't have anything specific to corporate stuff, just the Concur, which is the Toastmasters reimbursement. So for all of your incentives that you're earning, you have to have a Concur account in order to redeem those. And I did pop a link in the chat with a tutorial that shows you how to use Concur, how to get an account and set it up and all of that. So if that is not enough information for you, Linda did put the email for Teresa Lindahl, who is our recognition coordinator, and she can give you more specific information on how to set up a Concur account to get your reimbursements.
Okay, can I ask you a question about that, Tina? Because I have been out of the loop, and I did not know about this Concur account. Is this a new creation?
No, it's been around for years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess the former treasurer for my club never shared.
Well, and I think that it's used before, it was used for like division directors to reimburse on when we used to do in-person stuff, and we'd have contests and trainings, and we'd have to reimburse for all the supplies. It was used mainly for that. But since we've been doing the D2 dollars, that's where more of the clubs are getting involved now. And that's been the past 2 years, I believe, is.
Okay, that makes sense to me now. Now that you put it that way, I'm like, oh, that does sound familiar. Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Okay, thank you so much for adding that to the chat box. So whoever asked that question, it was Jinjin. You can go and check that out now, hopefully, and get the information you were looking for.
Do you have anything else to add about that, Linda?
No, I was just wondering, what is the question about corporate treasurer? What's
Yeah.
the question? That's just a big term.
Oh, you're muted, or we can't hear you. There you go, Andy.
Now.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, for some reason, my computer microphone. So we're a corporate club that we're just paying dues. We don't have any extras. So I was kind of thinking, oh, do we need an account? But you reminded me of the D2 dollars that we potentially getting back. So that would be a reason we would need an account. So you answered my question.
Oh, wonderful. And BECU is a really great bank to bank with. They have locations all over the place. And if you did want to create a bank account, they're not a bad place to go. You do have to set up an actual account, a time to go meet with an account representative. And it takes about an hour or so for the paperwork and everything to get into place. But where are you coming from, Andy? Are you down in Seattle or?
Yeah, we're a Bellevue office.
Okay.
And yeah, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you should be able to find a location, whether it's BECU or some other bank. Our club has been through a bunch of different banks, and I have to say BECU has been the easiest by far to contend with. Okay.
Paulette,
Yes.
Paulette,
Yes.
can I just add something to what Kathleen and David were talking about earlier?
Of course, absolutely, please.
In the getting people interested in helping them pay, I think it's really great to encourage members to stay active in the club. And by keeping them engaged, they'll continue to renew. But we've seen a few new members. They might come in and we get them to do their first speech or something like that. And then they're not on the schedule again. And I've seen this in other clubs that I've been in. Now, my current club is an advanced club, and we just rotate through. And if you have this role this time, you have another role. Our VPE is really good at putting you into a role, everyone. And so through that rotation, you're staying involved because our meetings are monthly, just like yours, Paulette. And when it's monthly, you can sort of fall off a little bit to say, oh, well, it's only monthly. No, it's only monthly is how it should be looked at. And so we've encouraged people to stay on even when they thought they weren't going to renew. And as treasurer, you have a great opportunity to be that person to kind of remind them how valuable this is. I've been in Toastmasters since 2007, and I've been encouraged through different people at different times. And last year when our treasurer left, or a year and a half ago, I had never been treasurer before because my whole career was in banking. I didn't want to do the money. But it's been kind of fun to do a different role and not to be the VPE and not to be president how many times over and all of that. So I would just encourage you to really embrace this role because it's a lot of fun and you're really key to what helps the membership stay afloat as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for making that point, Valerie, because that is something that I hadn't touched on, which it is your responsibility to try to encourage people. It's not just the VP membership, right, who sells the person the first time around. It's also up to the treasurer to remind people as they're asking for their dues for the next 6 months to say, hey, what have you gained out of being a part of this organization in the last 6 months? Sit down and really encourage people to ponder, because it's not just public speaking, right? We all know that it is a lot about leadership. It is a lot about how to put together a presentation formally or otherwise. And with Pathways, we now have stuff like podcasts and video blogging and all kinds of stuff that's really super relevant to the world and the workplace that we're in right now. So thank you so much for bringing that point up. I really appreciate it. All right, who here is taking payment through Venmo or Zelle or any of those? My club does not, but well, we do PayPal, but that's different. No, that's so interesting because my question to you all was going to be, how many of you here actually have members from either out of the state or out of the country that have joined your club since COVID hit? Show of hands. Yeah, we have people from Canada and we have people from Georgia. So we have people in the States, but not in Washington. And then we have people in a completely different country. Is anybody finding any challenges in trying to obtain payments that way? No? Valerie's like, nope, I got it. Okay, does anybody here use Zelle? Because that's one that I'm not super familiar with. I know it's through the bank and you have to have certain things in place for the bank to say, yes, you can have a Zelle account. But we were not, I mean, when we tried to open one, it just didn't seem to work out. So we stuck with PayPal.
The reason why it doesn't work is that the person at the other end that you've
Mhm.
sent the request to doesn't accept it. Now, that can be a couple of different reasons. The reason why may be because they don't have Zelle at the organization that they're with, unless they're at a larger bank, but it should work. And I personally love Zelle because there's no fee to it. Our club doesn't use it, but I personally use it when I'm taking Italian lessons or something like that to pay the instructor.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, that's incorrect. For businesses, there is a fee, which means also
Oh.
nonprofits and clubs. And depending on the bank, it's between 0.5%, which is, I think, BSU. If you bank with Bank of America, in the entry level, it's 5%, which is more than a credit card.
Yeah, more than PayPal as well.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah.
thank you for that correcting me.
Okay.
Plus, it's a lot of compliance, which you have to submit to get the Zelle account,
Yeah.
which might also be for clubs.
I found that PayPal was quite difficult too. They want all of this personal information and a lot of people aren't willing to provide that. And so you just have to, the verification of everything. I had to go to Toastmasters to get a letter that said that we were a nonprofit before they would let me open the business PayPal account. I was opening a new one because the people that were on it before were no longer with it. They had my email and my phone number, but they didn't have the name right. They didn't have anything right. And so I said, well, I'm the treasurer now, I'll take it on. So that would be something that people would probably need to do as well, is to establish the PayPal account, but make sure you have the governing documents. Make sure you have something that really shows you what it is. And if you don't have it, go to Toastmasters International. They were able to get me the document that verified that our tax ID number did belong to our club and that we are a nonprofit.
Yeah, so Valerie brings up a really important point, because when, you know, whether you're setting up a Google account, right, for keeping documents and starting a YouTube channel for your chapter, to all the way to, you know, creating a Venmo, which is basically an app on your phone, to the Zelle stuff or even PayPal, you now have more information out there that's more complicated, and it can be really tricky in transferring that information. So if you're only going to be treasurer for a year or 6 months, depending on what your club offers in you know, officer role positions, it can be a lot of work, you know. So that's where just going back to cash and check is just a nice thing, because I just tell our members in Everett Pace Setters, and by the way, I wanted to remind, was it Valerie? You said we don't meet once a month, we meet every week, but I was saying our officer meeting is once a month. So it's important to understand that there's a lot, like you can really complicate the treasurer's job if you want to, but what's the point? Why make it more complicated than necessary? So for instance, Donna Stoles, who I think I said was chair's dues person this year, she has been treasurer of many different clubs. I think she was part of 5 clubs at one time, including a corporate club. But what she did was she created a spreadsheet. So she would take PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, and one other one or something like that. And what she would do is she created a spreadsheet with the person's name, the date, and the type of payment that they gave her. Because if it's in your personal name, so for instance, if you have a Venmo account and people are paying you personally, you need to be able to show that you don't have that money anymore sitting in your account, that you have literally transferred it to the bank and it belongs to the bank and or Toastmasters International, right? So you got to be careful with some of those things. It can be tricky, and there's ways around it, but you know, it can be kind of a lot of work. Okay, so they tell you the documents you need when submitted checking account statement, they would accept it. Oh, Valerie, that's what you were, okay, you were saying in there. Excellent.
Because someone asked what what documents do I need for PayPal?
Right. Yeah. I didn't find it that complicated to get our account set up, but I mean, I guess it just depends on the day and the time, because we know that those companies change their algorithms and their processes constantly. So, okay. Somebody wanted to know how to make the job fun, and Linda, I loved your response. It's not uncommon for the treasurer to actually purchase things for the club, for instance, pins or badges or ribbons and so forth and so on. Just paraphernalia, right? That we as club members, we might decide we want to spend our money on. And so that is a fun part of the job. I will say only if you're not using gift certificates. Who here has had issues with gift certificates, right? So what I'm talking about, if I can find them, I don't even know if I have any left, but basically Toastmasters district. Yes, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
They'd send out district dollars, Toastmaster dollars. So if you meet Super 7, or if you do something else, they give you those Toastmaster certificates. And right now, the only way to use those certificates is to go online, get the codes for what it is that you're trying to order, print it off. That's the easiest way to do it. They used to have a form you could fill out and put all the codes in there, and they may still do that, but the easiest way is just to put everything into your shopping cart, take a picture of it, print it, and delete the cart so nothing gets charged from your account, and then send that paperwork along with the gift certificates directly to headquarters in Colorado. So it's kind of a pain in the butt, but you get some cool stuff. You get some fun pins and things like that. And I've noticed with Pathways, they've added a bunch of different things that they didn't used to have before with the legacy program. All right. Oh, I think Jin, I think Valerie was talking about the paperwork to PayPal. Is that what you were talking about, Valerie? Yeah, so PayPal needs to know your 501(c) status, and they need to have paperwork to prove that you're a nonprofit business.
No, my question is because Valerie said that she got a letter from Toastmaster. So I was asking if the letter was from Toastmaster International, or from your own Toastmaster club, or from D2. So,
got it.
Try to clarify.
Sorry, Valerie, do you know?
Yes, it was from Toastmasters International, and it has to come from the finance department because they have to be the one to issue it. So it does come from them. They do verify and validate. And so I was hoping and praying as I sent it in, and PayPal did receive it and accept it. But it is on the Toastmasters International letterhead.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, we're at about 1:15. I just wanted to throw it out one last time. Are there any other questions or any comments? Is there something that you want to share as treasurer that maybe we didn't cover, or something that you've discovered that would be helpful to the other people in the group? Oh, Jacqueline, she says, we're not in Washington State. Oh, boy, that is a good question. I think the only way, Jacqueline, is to contact BECU. I don't know that we could answer that question for you. If a lot of your members are out of state, I'm not sure. how that would work. But that's a great question, right? And really, if there's something that we didn't answer here, and it has to do with specifically like with a payment app, or it has to do with banking, probably your best bet is to just contact the bank itself, or the company that's running the app, like Venmo or Zelle or whatever. So, okay, Andy, you had a question about nonprofit and documentation of taxes. What's that? What's the question directly?
Yeah, I think one of the members had brought it up is do I need any extra documentation for putting my dues on my taxes? I was thinking it was on them, and I would just give them the what is it, the 50149 status paper, and then they could have that. I don't know if anyone has had similar questions from members, but she was just like, I want to make sure I'm not leaving anything on the table. So
Sure. Yeah.
I haven't dug into it yet, but figured.
Yeah, well, you
anyone
make
here?
a good point, because we are a nonprofit, right? We're paying dues to this nonprofit. Can those dues be written off? Is that what you're asking? As
Yeah,
sort of
I
like
think that was the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's possible, but I've never had anybody ask me to do. Anybody here done that?
Yeah, I don't think that you can, because it's not enough money. You're not paying taxes on it anyway. So
Mhm.
there's really nothing to write off.
If you're
That was
doing,
kind of what I thought. Is such a small fee, but
Yeah.
but if you're doing your own, if you have someone doing your taxes, put it under memberships. Be sure that your accountant or your tax person knows it's under club memberships, because in some situations I have been able to include that with some of the things that I've paid over the years in taxes, but other years not.
Yeah, and my advice for that is, if it's for people's personal taxes, they need to consult with their tax person. We can't give tax advice here.
Right. Yeah, that makes that makes
that's
sense.
a good yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
that's stepping on some toes there. Toastmasters International.
Appreciate the support. Yeah.
Yeah. Valerie, I think to answer your question, anybody that's registered online, your information has already been accepted as you've attended the training, right, Tina? Or do they actually have to show up and be accounted for in the?
Or repeat the question.
Well, so Valerie wanted to know how she was going to get credit for the training today, and I said,
Oh, I pull an attendee report,
Yeah.
and your name will be on it, and that's what I use to give credit.
Okay, thanks.
cool. And then Jackie wanted to know about CPA recommendations. Are you looking for personal or for the club? Both. Yeah, I do not have any recommendations for a CPA. Does anybody else?
I would recommend talking to your club members and see if any of the club members have any recommendations, because it depends on where you are and all of that. And then you can just kind of maybe get recommendations from people in your area.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of a, it's like a financial advisor, right? CPAs and financial advisors and tax strategists are all very, very important people. Okay, Andy said he wanted to know extra pathways costs. Is that through the treasurer, or can they pay on the website on their own? I think that's up to the individual. So once they've joined and they've gotten their 2 free paths, if they're going to go down any other paths, I think they just pay that on their own. Is that correct, Tina or Kevin? Linda?
Both works.
Yeah.
Preferred is, of course, do it yourself.
It's kind of like, we had to pay for manuals and those kind of things. Anything additional you pay for on your own, unless it's club dues.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Something
Yes.
that's come up in the past, and I just want to mention it because there were a couple people that said, oh, they're brand new to being treasurer. Someone asked a few times in different clubs that I've been in, well, we have this extra money and this person here doesn't have much money, and I know that they still want to stay in Toastmasters. Can we use our funds in our account because we've got so many? Can we do that? And the answer is sadly no. But you have to be the one to say that no. And it's not always a happy time, just to let you know. So if you are asked, say, no, it's not part of the Toastmasters, doesn't allow us to do that. We would love to, however, we're not able to. But thank you for asking. And just so they don't feel bad.
Do you know, Linda or Tina, if the club chooses, so in regard to that question, if the club chooses to take up money aside from their own personal bank account to pay for that member's dues, like what's it, $60, and you have, 12 people pay $5 to support that person for the next 6 months, is that okay for Toastmasters to do, like individually as opposed to taking club funds?
Yeah, if you do, something like that individually, then, that's one thing. But it's something that was told to me is, the investment in themselves, and it's not that large of an investment, but really, honestly, if they're paying for it on their own, they get more
out of it.
value.
Yeah, because there's a little
It's
skin
a
in the
value
game, right?
thing. There's skin in the game, yeah. But you can get creative with that.
Yeah, I mean,
on your own as a club.
we've had members that were students, and so they just really didn't have that extra money to do it, but they really wanted to be a part of the club. So I do think there are ways around it, but you got to be careful. And as Linda said, you cannot run it through the treasurer. So
There are countries that $45 US is quite a bit in their currency, and they have less money than we do here, just in general.
right.
So in some countries, they pay their dues to the treasurer monthly. So it's a smaller increment,
Yeah.
and it works.
Yeah. And you just got to get creative, right? You just have to be creative. Yeah. Well, my goodness. Thank you so much, everybody, for the excellent questions. We have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to turn it back over to either the area director, the division director, Kevin. I don't know if there's any announcements or anything that you want to fill anybody in on, or Tina.
Well, here's a district announcement first. So Tina, Linda, whoever. Tina's faster. Okay, Tina.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, my big announcement, and I'm going to share my screen, is the conference. So we have our District 2 conference, May 22nd, May 22nd, May 21st. I don't know why I have a 2 there. May 21st is the keynote speeches. May 23rd or 22nd is the contest. The business meeting kicks everything off on the 14th. And then we have ed sessions all the week of the 16th through the 20th. And I am proud to announce that our keynote speakers are the reigning world champion of public speaking, Verity Price, first Vice President, Morag Matheson, and accredited speaker, Ronald Chapman. He's got some pretty amazing things to share. We are offering for clubs that get all of their members registered and attend, will get a very special background just for them, so that everybody will know that the whole club is there. We'll have backgrounds available of the conference, but it should be a really good time. So I hope you will all be there. And Linda, do you have announcements?
Yes, I'm so looking forward to conference. Do we know when the registration will open up?
Registration is now open.
Oh, is it open already? Okay.
Yes, it's on the calendar. Doesn't have all of the information yet. We're still working to get that piece together, but you can register. And there is a video from Verity Price. So if you go to d2tm.org to the calendar for May 21st and click on that, you will see a video from Verity Price in there.
Oh, that's exciting. I can hardly wait. So what I want to talk about is club incentives, which we've already been talking a little bit about today. So this is our club incentives page on the web page. And as you'll notice at the top, you can click here and get to the spreadsheet to see what your club has available. And the first one is the club marketing video. we want every club just to put together some sort of video, and you can use your imagination. It doesn't have to be long, because as you know, in social media, they really prefer short. So you could do multiples, but you're still only going to get one $50 D2 award. So just do this sometime in February or March, and then you've got a month to let us know that you've done it. And $50. We're trying to be generous here. Club open house. It's so easy to have an open house online. We don't even have to have food. So really just have a meeting and call it an open house, get a speaker in there, make it fun and exciting, and get another $50 D2. And then talk up Toastmasters, just like every year, February and March. Toastmasters has an incentive, and also District 2 has an incentive. So even if you just were to add 1 or 2 or 3 new members in February or March, your club can get $10 for each new member that you add. It can't be a transfer member, because that doesn't bring any new money into D2. But if it's a dual member or reinstated or a new member, you'll get $10 if you add them in February or March. And then Beat the Clock will be coming up in May and June. And then you already know about the Super 7 because you're here and you're earning the Super 7 award. So good for you. Back to you, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Linda. And then, of course, like with every club of the training, we have the survey at the end to know whether to hold it again or find something else to say you are the treasurer, we have trained you. And as long as TI changes the rules before next year, that might make an impact on that, but it certainly will make an impact on what we train and how we do it. And especially going forward, whether we have it in person or still online, that's something you can influence by clicking on there. And we have 4 minutes left, so there should be just enough question to fill out the survey.
I have a question for Linda. So when you say incentive for the new members, do you have to have 5 new members, or do you remember?
No, you don't have to have 5, but if you do get 5, you get an extra prize from Toastmasters International. If you can get 5 between February and March, good for you. But even if you just get 1, 2, or 3, you'll still get the $10 for each new member from District 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's some really great incentives. Yeah, well, I do hope that I answered everyone's questions today and that you felt that the training was worth your time. And of course, I do apologize for not introducing our dignitaries in the room at the beginning. That was a big, huge Toastmaster no-no. But hey, we're flying by the seat of our pants today. What can we say? Very much appreciate Tina being here. Are you club quality or club growth, Tina? I forget.
Program quality director.
Program quality, thank you.
Yes.
And Linda, are you a leader this year? Just not at the trio level, right?
I am in the trio.
You are in the trio. Oh my gosh,
Yes,
how did I not know that?
I'm club growth director this year, and I'm hoping a prayer I'll be program quality, but we don't know yet. We're waiting on pins and needles. We've all interviewed.
Yep. Well, thank you both of you very much for serving in our trio and for the time and effort that you put into our district. District 2 is an amazing district. We have great clubs here. And thank you, Kevin, for serving as a division director. I've been an area director, but never stepped up beyond that. So.
And if you're just now joining us, if you'll stay on for just a moment, we're going to, I have some information for you. So if you've just joined us, just stay on for a few more minutes.
All right.
So the rest of us can log off now? That's what you say?
Everyone else, have a nice rest of your day. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you all for being here.
Linda and Tina, do you have a